Too Many Losing Heroines has absolutely blown me away in terms of its movie quality production. A1 brothers, you guys cooked. But don't get me wrong when I say that there are too many losing adaptations of light novels that fail to effectively capture its source material, which usually results in a production where the anime doesn't necessarily offer any more value in its new narrative medium, and in some situations, sometimes even making it worse. So it was to my genuine surprise that Too Many Losing Heroines showed great directional choices on top of its beautiful animation and stunning visuals. And it's pretty clear when the team behind the production really cares about its anime adaptation, so much so that the first 4 episodes could easily be a standalone movie. That is to say, most of this video will discuss what I think makes episode 4 an amazing conclusion to what is essentially a prologue arc for the series. I have 2 scenes in mind that I want to discuss, but before I talk about those scenes, I think it's important to divide the episode into its 2 parts in terms of its structure to better understand the thematic representation of what it means to be shining through losing. More on that a bit later. Structure is important here because not only is it a continuation of Komari's loss from the previous episode, but also a resolution to Yanami's and Nukumizu's loss established from the first episode. And honestly, it just lets me structure this video in a much easier fashion. But of course, before we dive in, spoilers ahead. The episode opens by following the previous episode's climax with a confession from Komari as the group is playing with fireworks. Everyone is shocked and left speechless from the sudden confession that the only sound remaining is the sound of the sparklers fizzing out. Komari runs away as the president cannot give her a proper answer, which in turn the vice president, Koto, asks why he didn't turn her down. Prez responds by saying that this is between him and Komari, not something for Koto to decide. Great foreshadowing of future characterization later in the episode. But ultimately, angering Koto, causing her to run off as well. The scene ends by cutting back to the group and Nukumizu saying he wants to light black snakes and forget everything, with the opening following shortly after. The opening sequence has a few things to know, besides the fact that Komari never had a chance to begin with, as suggested from last episode's end title drop, and literally of what the name of the anime is, but also I want to point out the symbolism and significance of fireworks here. Fireworks are often used to indicate a celebratory sign, but only for a fleeting moment, comparable to Komari, in the context of a character indicating a moment of youth pointing up and disappearing in an instant through her confession, in a figurative and literal sense, as Komari runs away. A celebratory sign being that she has beaten Koto in this game of love, if only for a brief second. And it's not until this moment where I think Komari truly shines like a firework, in the height of her confession, showing to be the most courageous of the losing heroines. Fireworks are not only a representation of Komari and her confession, but also play into the core theme of this series about youthful romances, not lasting all that long after high school. They are short. Most break up after graduation, and even so, it is a part of youth to enjoy that aspect of romance. A direct contrast to our main character, Nukumizu, comparing him to a black snake, a firework with a slow kind of burn, reflecting Nukumizu as a character to how his development has remained stagnant in the beginning, and how he has yet to shine. After the opening plays, we get a few scenes of Nukumizu offering his advice to Prez, transitioning into Koto and Prez resolving their misunderstandings and sorting out their feelings. These scenes itself don't offer much besides a bit of insight to Nukumizu's character, with how, as an outsider, is sensitive to others' relationships, even dragging away Yanami to leave them alone with a bit of foreshadowing about confessing later on. But it is also just refreshing to see characters properly talk to each other without the drama lasting for an entire season. I have to commend the writing here. We finish with Nukumizu lighting the last few fireworks with Komari, as she tells Nukumizu she got formally turned down. And it's not until her firework finally burns out that the realization sets in. Komari has officially lost, marking the 3rd time that Nukumizu has witnessed a losing heroine. And it's these small directional choices here that add so much more to the scene, with the last drop of the firework mimicking Komari's first tears, as she can't help herself but cry after being heartbroken, indicating that she has finally burned out. Despite this, it is admirable of Komari to try to reconcile and stay friends with her senpais in her club, As being the losing heroine, they have no choice but to move forward, a direct statement from Yanami back in the first episode. And thus, this marks the thematic conclusion to Komari's story and the first part of this episode. The rest of the episode shifts its focus back to Nukumizu and mainly his relationship with Yanami. The scene that follows has excellent storyboarding through the subtle use of framing with the branches covering Nukumizu's face, almost making him unrecognizable, following the explicit revelation through the dialogue of the rumors of the girls not even knowing what he looks like. The reflection of Yanami on the phone screen walking into frame is great here too, as not only is she entering the shot, but also entering to Nukumizu's side, as represented by crossing the pipe that divides the shot, providing the subtext that she has already considered to be friends with Nukumizu from the start, even going as far as to waving to him again, lagging behind her friends. This is immediately followed by Nukumizu walking out of frame, putting distance between him and Yanami, as he is afraid that being too friendly with Yanami might harm her reputation. I want to briefly touch up on the next few scenes, as they are still important, but not what I mainly want to focus on. I still think they're fantastic, as we get more of a look into Nukumizu's character and his interpersonal feelings, as the shots directly reflect his character, with the entire scene changing to have a complete lack of saturation, as if regret fills him after expressing his concerns with Yanami about the rumors. Komari poking fun at Nukumizu, saying that he has been dumped, a bit more foreshadowing. Yakishio this time offered her advice in place of Nukumizu earlier, with Prez saying that he shouldn't have regrets. It's not until Nukumizu expresses himself clearly, saying that he did enjoy eating lunch with Yanami, bringing back the color in the following scenes. But the main element that I think ties everything nicely together is the last few minutes of the episode. Enter the final scene, a nice visual callback with thematic parallels to the first episode's ending. Before heading to the rooftops, Nukumizu glances at the notes in his phone, which lists Yanami's debt now at 0, compared to the first episode where it was still being repaid, being the sole reason for the meetups. The relationship has grown much more than someone just repaying the debt, and I think this shows that Nukumizu is subconsciously aware of this fact as he smiles to himself. They no longer need a reason if they want to meet up. We transition to both Nukumizu and Yanami on the rooftops, once again gazing down at Yakishio running, now with Komari in the mix this time around. Nukumizu has finally realized things are different now. He's now involved with these people which normally would never happen. The status quo has changed and he can't go back, he can only move forward. That is just a part of youth. In order to do so, he quote-unquote confesses to Yanami, wanting to be friends. Yanami mistakes it as a romantic kind of confession, turning him down. Either way, it's not until Nukumizu gets rejected and becomes a part of the losing heroine club that only then he can start shining, as his story is just beginning. There's a nice bit of irony with Nukumizu getting turned down in the place where he consoled Yanami, saying that he's never been turned down, and it still technically holds true that he wasn't dumped, but regardless, it is a fantastic ending as we get our last losing heroine, or rather, hero. A fist bump to commemorate and officially state their friendship, another callback to episode 3, ending on what I think is the perfect note with the title drop. When you stare into a losing heroine, the losing heroine stares back into you. A few closing remarks. I want to note a few small directional choices that I wasn't sure where to put in the video, so now I'm mentioning them here. Before Nukumizu's confrontation with Hakamata, Nukumizu is found to be drinking faucet water in a not so convenient place, keeping it consistent with his characterization. There are also several cuts to flowers throughout the episode, specifically violets, not only in this episode, but also a very similar shot referencing the first episode as well, which could be interpreted as Nukumizu's caution about his relationship with the people around him, as he is unsure how to classify them. The final shot of flowers we do get in this episode is a shot of marigolds, reflecting Nukumizu's deepening of his friendships around him. And honestly, if anyone can keep up this quality of directional touches, I am all for it. As the time of this posting, episode 5 is probably airing shortly after, so this video only covers up to the 4th episode, which also happens to be the first volume of the light novel, if you feel so inclined to pick it up from there. And if anything new comes up in future episodes that add to my points made here, then hey, I just might make a follow-up.